out this is a meeting of the council held in public. It is not a public meeting. There is no fire drill planned, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave by the exit nearest the large screen at the front of the room and proceed down the fire exit to the courtyard. Once it is safe to return, councillors will receive a text message. Officers will advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. We're recording the meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the council's website following the meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off, set to silent, so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome all the people at home watching on the webcam tonight. So, meeting of Standards and Privileges Committee. Item number 1, apologies for absence. We have one apology. Stephen Clode, independent person. Are there any more apologies for absence?
Councillor Baggott.
Councillor Baggott?
Yes, apologies from Councillor Myers. He had a meeting in London with Heriot and has been delayed, so he's not going to be able to make it.
Thank you very much. Point number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
Councillor Smith.
Just the usual of Essex County Council, should it arise.
En bloc, all county councillors. Thank you. Now, the minutes of the Standards Committee held on the 24th of March 2026. This is from the previous committee, but we'll be voting on the accuracy for those who were there.
And they have been referred to the former chair for accuracy for their agreement.
Yeah, they have been forwarded to the previous chair for accuracy. So we take a vote. All those in favour?
Well, I think the council was actually there, so.
Yeah.
Any against?
Any against? No, no abstentions?
1, 2.
Two abstentions. Lovely, thanks very much.
Okay.
Right, the annual report on declarations of interest and associated matters.
That's in my
This
hands,
is
Chair.
down to the monitoring officer.
Move my drink to the other side. Right, going off. Good evening, councillors. Well, this is my first meeting of the Standards Committee. I've attended as your interim monitoring officer. Hello and welcome from me. And I should say hello to Mr Pearson as well, because you're our very valued, one of our very valued independent persons. If, without sounding as though it's a detention, could I have a quick word with you after the meeting, just to have a catch up? So the first item which I'm bringing to you this evening is an annual report on declarations of interest and associated matters. It is a matter for noting, and it simply records the fact that we've got new members and they've registered their interests, and there have been other interests which have been referred to in committee of the other registrable interests of variety, and indeed the non-registrable interest variety. And I think from my experience of attending committees, councillors have been fairly assiduous in doing that. I think it's if there's any area for greater vigilance, it's in the speed of updating the register of interests form when there's a change to personal circumstances for whatever reason. And I know there's been a bit of a habit of emailing somebody in the governance team, say, would you update my register to reflect this, that or the other? And I'm not a fan of that, because it moves the responsibility from the member to an officer to update it. And I think if it's the member's obligation to update their register, they should fill in a new form. It doesn't take that long, or you can even photocopy your old form and then just redate it, and then I can countersign it and put it on the public public register for everybody to see who wishes to see it. But other than that, it's an item to note, unless there's any questions from members of the committee. No. Good to move on to the next item.
Next item is the standards arrangements appointment of independent persons.
Another one from me, thank you, Chair. I'm coming into post and realising we have a deluge of member conduct complaints in this authority. I asked how many independent persons we have, and the answer is 2. And I asked when they were appointed, just to make sure that they were still appointed, because it has been known for independent persons to be appointed and then to remain in time immemorial and in perpetuity until somebody asks them to no longer be appointed. We have 2, Mr Pearce and Mr Clode. They were appointed in accordance with the provisions of the Localism Act after a public recruitment campaign 4 years ago. Their term of office, in fact, ends in November of 2026. They are eligible for reappointment, and best practice is you wouldn't usually extend a serving member to have more than 2 consecutive terms in office, because I think the view is they begin to lose their independence if 8 years in the institution is probably enough for anyone. Anyway, I think given the number of complaints and issues which we asked the independent persons to opine on, it might be fairer to increase their number. I'm suggesting to the committee that you authorise the council to go out to a recruitment campaign along the lines of the last one. I wasn't familiar with what it did, but I'm sure it will be compliant. I'll review it with Anne or whoever her successor is, and the chair, and we'll go out and post adverts in the usual places and invite people to come forward who want to be considered for appointment as an independent person. We will need to have some sort of member interview. I think it's appropriate for you to see the people who are going to be discharging that function for the council, and I think we'll probably come to members of this committee and invite you to participate in that, and then to come, the nominations will come forward to the committee for approval and onward transmission to the council for appointment in due course. So the report is before you as a whole. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions in relation to the proposed action, or indeed the background and legislation that sits behind it.
Councillor Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Monitoring Officer. I just got like 3 questions. So my first one is what?
Sorry, your mic's still on.
Oh, sorry.
I think my mic was on.
Yes. So what steps are being taken to ensure that the recruitment of additional independent persons strengthens public confidence in the impartiality and independence of the standards process? That's my first question. Did you want me to just give you all my questions and then you can just...
We'll make a note of them and see if I can answer them.
Okay. And then my second question is, has any consideration been given to increasing diversity within the independent person pool to ensure a broad range of perspectives and experiences are represented? And then my third question is, how will the effectiveness of the independent persons be measured, and how will members know that their involvement is adding value to the standards process?
In terms of, thank you, Councillor Smith. In terms of strengthening the impartiality, I mean, obviously the advert that goes out will be from the council, not from any political group of the council. It will stress that the qualification for an independent person is that they must not have been a member of a political party. I think it's for 5 years previously, or a member of any local authority, or a cooperative member of any local authority, and that it is a role which is very important to trust and confidence in the impartiality of the decision-making process. And I think that would be one thing that the councillors and the council will want to quiz any candidates on, and check their social media feeds and check their, anything that might have been posted in the press or so forth about the candidates. in terms of consideration of greater diversity, I'm absolutely on that bus with you. You know, I'm fully aware of the public sector equality duty of a local authority, and I am myself quite an advocate for ensuring that there is proper representation in all spheres of public life. So there will, I think, be steps taken to ensure that the vacancy is drawn to the attention of minority communities who are underrepresented at the present time. And again, this will be discussed with HR and with the appropriate colleagues within the organisation. In terms of adding value and your view of the independent persons, that's quite a difficult one to come up with an appropriate measure on. I mean, maybe perhaps members would be better placed to put that target in place. I think it's really important that the members have confidence in the impartiality and in the you know, service offered by the independent persons. Their views are always separately recorded. Certainly any decision notices I am involved with, they will be separately recorded, and it's important that both the press and the public and the councillors all see what the views of the independent persons are. And you know, there's no sort of accumulation of votes and a sense of the meeting. I think their votes must be recorded, or they don't have votes, but their views must be recorded separately. And if members think they're completely off beam, then no doubt they won't be reappointing them. But you know, I certainly from the numerous decision notices and notes of discussions which I've seen, we have rigorous and robust views shared by the independent persons with the monitoring officer and with the committee on the rare occasions that they get to have a hearing, and that should continue.
Councillor Bagot.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, first of all, I think it is eminently sensible for us to be expanding the amount of independence that we have on this particular committee, especially, as you've said, with the raft of issues that have come up. But I think that, and hopefully this will also maybe help Councillor Joseph with her questions in a way, because in a previous life I was responsible for the appointment of the Independent Remuneration Committee, and again, by having a robust process and asking the right questions, members were able to satisfy themselves that that particular committee was well positioned to actually do the job. And I think that in the time they've served on this council in that role, I think they've done an impressive job. And one of the questions you could ask, for instance, is how do you see, as if you were a member of the Standards Committee, you would add value to that particular process, which demonstrates then, gives them an ability to respond and show they have an understanding of standards in general. So I think that can be covered off in the actual recruitment process. Now, I don't know the two current incumbents, but if we're going to have a recruitment drive, we don't know how many we're going to get responding. We could have thousands, we could have 3, who knows. It would seem to me to be sensible to invite them to, if they wanted to continue, to throw their hat into the ring, and they go through the same process as a way of being transparent and fair and ensure that any new standards committee under a new paradigm is actually being set up in the right way, with the right intentions, in the right manner. So my personal recommendation would be that we go out to recruitment with alacrity, that we have the right set of questions in order to assure ourselves that we get good people on the Standards Committee, but that we invite the other two to actually be part of that process rather than just there by default. And I would also like on record, I think, to thank them. I haven't really been involved with them and standards at all. Maybe that says a good thing about me, who knows. But I think that they should be thanked for the service that they've given to the borough in that capacity over the time that they've served. Thank you. Yeah, formal proposal. I've got to hope I get a second, haven't I?
Is that a seconder for that?
Your Vice Chair?
I'll second that.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown. Anybody who wants to speak on the amendment?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to speak on the
Does anybody else want to speak on the amendment?
We'll take the amendment first. Is that amendment agreed?
Okay. Right, so we'll have a vote on the amendment.
Just ask if the amendment's agreed.
Is the amendment agreed?
I'll be silly if I didn't agree with
Any against?
Any against? Any against the amendment?
You're for the amendment? Yeah? Okay, so it's 3 in favour and 1 abstention.
Yep.
So
Three
the
in
amendment's
favour.
carried.
Yep, so the amendment is carried.
Does anybody want to speak on the substantive proposal? I think Councillor Smith does.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll draw your attention to page 17. Now, we quite rightly and universally in this chamber last Thursday voted against the initial recommendation to increase our allowances in line with inflation. It says here on page 17 that their wage is 20% of a basic councillor's allowance at £1,490 annually. Now, if we're out to recruit the very best person, us members as politicians, we can take the decision to freeze our allowances, but should we punish, whatever words people feel appropriate, the independent persons who give up their time for £1,490 a year? Should they be in line for the basic inflationary pay rise that was offered to us last week that borough councillors universally rejected?
Chair, I think it's a matter for members to determine what remuneration, if any, they offer to the independent persons. I think there is a cap on what they can be paid, set out in the regulations. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I don't think they do it for the money, put it that way. I think a lot of these jobs, I mean, it's like being appointed to a housing association or to various other public sector jobs. There may be some payment to defray the expenses and the acknowledge the service that's given, but it's essentially a public service job.
Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, if Councillor Smith wants to propose it, I'm certainly happy to second it. I do think that if we want good people to come forwards, it's all very well and very laudable to say people will just put out their time and their money and their expense of getting here, their expense of getting home, child minding or whatever else is required just for public service. But I think that's also a little bit naive. And I think that quite rightfully, as Councillor Smith says, we can choose where we set our allowances, whether we agree with it or not. We have that ability to vote for. They don't. And I think that as a council, we should at least show some respect for those people that step up to the plate and want to be involved in the council processes as unelected members.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Yes, I believe it was a 3.7% increase that we refused last Thursday. 3.4%. Well, I'd like to propose that the independent persons, not independent councillors like me, but the independent persons that serve on the standards board, get that promised 3.4% increase, and I believe Councillor Baggott is seconding that.
Seconded.
We have a humongous amount of outstanding complaints from the last municipal year, and we need to get rid of them, the complaints. And I think that's fair for the extra workload. So we're back on track. Things don't cost nothing. We have to be fair to these people who give up their time. So every person that will be serving as an independent person, not independent councillors, but independent persons on the standards board, get that 3.4% increase that councillors would have had, but we quite sensibly, universally voted it down.
Allowances was that it should also be backdated to April 2025. Is that part of your recommendation, or is it merely for action as from today?
As from today.
As from today.
Excuse me for asking for the clarification, but yeah. Okay. From the 24th of June. Okay, so that's to add paragraph 4 to the recommended actions, which is that the independent person's allowance is uprated by 3.4% in accordance with the recommended rise by the Independent Remuneration Panel as from the 24th of June 2026. Do you want to take, is that agreed by the meeting? Oh,
Councillor Baggott.
Just a point of clarification, if I can, from the monitoring officer, because we've said 3.4%. I said I'd second it. I didn't say necessarily I'd vote for it. I just want to clarify that it is only hundreds of pounds you're talking about. It's not thousands or millions of pounds of public purse we're committing to here. It is hundreds of pounds, literally, isn't it?
Chair, through you, the allowance paid to an independent person in this borough is 20% of the basic allowance made to all borough councillors. So I have to say I don't know what the basic allowance is to all borough councillors. You will be much better placed to determine that. But if it's 20% is 1,500 quid for want of detail, then you're looking at it being a few pounds of increase.
£42.
Yeah, there you go. Don't spend it all at once, Mr. Pearson.
Okay, so we have a proposer and a seconder.
And so put the amendment to the vote first.
And the amendment is this 3
Or just say to add paragraph 4 to the recommendations. Is that agreed?
Yep. To add to paragraph 4. All agreed?
It's all agreed. So you then put the recommendations as a whole as amended to the committee and see if those are agreed.
Right, so do we agree the recommendation as amended? Yep,
It's unanimous.
yep, unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Right, next item is the update on the member training schedule.
You're going to get bored of my voice, as many have before. So this is really just to bring to this committee, somewhat ex post facto, I have to say, an overview report on the training which was arranged for incoming members of the council and for all sitting councillors following the municipal elections in May 2026. I have to say, on coming into office on the 19th of March, I was somewhat aghast to recognise that there wasn't that much planned, and I think given the state of relations in the authority as a whole, some was definitely needed. So Rachel McCoy, my colleague, has worked with the governance team and other officers to ensure that there has been a fairly substantial range of training meetings, and we've also arranged that they are all recorded and available to councillors at any point that they want to have a refresher or to view the training that's been given, because they're on a micro site of our website, so that stands as a body of knowledge for councillors. And we're now just into the last stages of the topic-specific training. So we've got, for example, planning tomorrow, and there's still one or two other things left to go. I think it's appropriate for the committee to take a view on value for money, on member attendance at those meetings, and some were better than others. And unfortunately, one or two of the meetings had to take place during the day, just because the availability of the trainers was very limited, because we were late in the day in coming to book them. But the terms of reference of this committee includes responsibility for the training and development programme for members, and you ought to have an overview of that. And if you think there should be more of it or less of it, or take views, or maybe a survey of members as to what they thought was effective or not, you're our conduit, really. So I'm happy to take questions, any comments or observations that members of the committee might have. I've seen lots of hands go up. The Mayor is gesticulating from a sedentary position.
Just in regards to agenda item, was the extension of the 2-year contracts amended? It was. Oh, perfect. Sorry, I misheard that. Thank you.
So, any questions or comments on this
Yes,
paper? I think we've got Councillor Baggott.
Councillor Baggott.
I mean, I think training is important. It used to be the remit of the Overview and Scrutiny Chairman to oversee training and do it. So it's interesting that it's now moved to standards here. I think the thing is that we have to recognise that members come from different walks of life. They've got different times where they're free and not. And from my own personal point of view, some of the trainings that have been organised this municipal year have not been at the best time. So what would be helpful, I think, is two things. One is that, as you said, that any training that is missed is accessible via the internet or whatever, so that a member can get trained even if they haven't turned up to the actual session themselves. And secondly, the ability to record that members have either watched that or whatever, and there should be a record kept of what training each individual member has done. Because in the same way the public quite rightfully should be able to see what meetings a member has attended, you know, and whether they, you know, and their voting record, then they should also see what the level of training that each individual member has undertaken in fulfilling their duty.
Chair, through you, if I may, I think the first point has already been dealt with. There is a microsite, and I will check before Anne leaves us how it's accessed and make sure that members all know where they can access it if they are not already aware of it. In terms of the record of training, of course, a register is taken, for want of a better expression, where the in-person training takes place. For training, if you like, the reviewing of the material after the event, I did ask for there to be a record kept, so we can, obviously, the system will show who's viewed it and how often and for how long. So it's not just clicking on it and saying you've attended it all, because some of the items are mandatory. So, for example, with planning, you cannot sit on the planning committee until you've received your planning training. So we do need to keep a detailed record of that, and I think it's appropriate, as you say, Councillor, for that to be more widely available. I've taken steps to review the process for nominating substitutes for committees for that very reason, because we were getting ourselves into a bit of a pickle over whose responsibility was it to notify the committee clerks and the chair and find a substitute, and whether they should be whether they've been trained or not. And we're getting lots of urgent training requests and things like that, which just, you know, gum up the works. So we have a much better register, which can easily be confirmed as to what training a member has received and when, and the substitution procedure. There's going to be a procedure note which just confirms how that takes place in a rather more seamly manner. So I agree with all those points, Councillor Baggott, and I hope they are all being done. I'm always somewhat sceptical of when people say, yes, that's fine, it's all being done, whether it's actually being done in quite the way that you expect it to be, but I will check.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I suggest one is added? It doesn't comply with all the legalities, but as councillors, we're appointed to serve the public. Can I just ask a question through the chair to members sitting here today? Who has heard of a hedge card? Stick your hand up. Yep. This is the point I'm going to make. No one indicated to put their hand up. Would it be possible to have James Hendry and other members of his related team to do a training session to do with open spaces, public areas, pavements? Because there's a crossover of things, because now the weather's turning warmer, I'm sure you're all getting besieged by emails, can a hedge be cut, etc., etc. And it would be helpful because some of it is Essex and some of it is us. So just very briefly, a hedge card is if someone's got a hedge that's blocking the pavement, they contact us. We will email Basildon Council to say, can you tell that little old lady to get her edge cut, when in fact we have very little powers. This should fall to the county council. So there's 3 of us county councillors here. We can email County Hall, or rather the council can email County Hall to request a hedge card be issued against the resident. After that terrible fire the weekend in my ward, in Rookyard and the Mayor's Division, Essex, a nearby neighbour complained about a very untidy garden. And she said, could the council come in and help and all this? Because I'm an old set of hands at this. I said, how bad is it? Is it just untidy or is this bad? She went, it's really bad. I went, okay, well, I'll ask planning enforcement to visit and do a section 215 notice to ask the landowner to clear the land up. Now, I think that sort of training would be very helpful to all members, because if you're like myself, who's been at county and borough for a number of years, you know all these little dicks and dives to get things done for residents. But for new members, some members who've never served at Essex, they're not aware of this. And I think it would be more helpful to residents. And one final point on this, on many of the walkways, 5 links to Vangill Drive, the Langdon Hills estate, the County Council, hopefully that's changed, Sam, are supposed to spray the walkways. They do not, and it falls to us to pick up the gap, when it should fall to us dual latters and county members to do what I've been doing, just keeping the pressure on Essex to get their weed killer teams out. So I think that sort of training day with James Hendry and his team for all members would be very helpful, because it would help to clean up the borough a lot quicker. Thank you for your indulgence.
Councillor Joseph.
Thank you. So I've got quite a few questions. Given that many of the issues discussed by this committee obviously relate to conduct, governance and standards, how would this committee assess or determine whether the training being delivered is actually improving member understanding and behaviour? In other words, how do we measure whether the training is making a difference rather than simply just being attended? That's one. My second question is, has any considerations been given to setting minimum expectations for attendance at key governance and standard related training, particularly for members serving on committees with significant responsibilities? And then I have, given the discussions that are around social media standards and conduct, would it be beneficial for social media training to include practical examples of misinformation, online harassment, discriminatory language and escalation into real world conflict? Because ultimately it's one thing to have a policy and it's another thing to ensure that members understand how to actually apply it into practice. So what does success look like for this committee in 12 months from now? Because, I mean, considering everything that we're putting into practice, and how will this committee know that the investment in member training has resulted in better governance, better decision making and higher standards of conduct, which kind of like links into what Kerry was just saying about, you know, the hedge training. I think it's really important, but I would say like one of the KPIs for what Kerry is suggesting you would see the results in the community. You know, residents, it would just, Basildon will look a lot cleaner. Residents will take care of their, you know, their front lawn, and you would be able to see that difference. You can measure the outcome of that training. So those are the questions that I have for you.
Chair.
Well, Chair, through you, I'm loving Councillor Joseph's contributions today. They are very well thought through questions indeed. For taking them in no particular order and referencing Councillor Smith's contribution too, we did do a piece of training for new members on casework handling. I know that took place, it says TBC, but I know it did actually take place a couple of weeks ago. Because I think one of the big pressure points, particularly for new members, is managing the expectations of residents. You know, you've spent all your time knocking on doors and hearing people's views of the council or of the councils, because they don't really differentiate, as you say, between what's county and what's borough. And you want to make it all better, because that's why you got elected. And then being able to say, well, actually, there's a process here and it takes a little bit of time, and learning how not to then to put appropriate pressure in the system rather than inappropriate pressure in the system is quite a difficult line to navigate. So I know that we had a training session specifically looking at that. I wasn't aware of the hedge card. I think rather than that being training per se. It's really about information from James's team, isn't it? To members that this is here, it's available, and it's a tool that you should put in your bag of tricks, really. But I will pick up with James tomorrow. He's a great officer, and I will make sure that that is carried forward with him specifically. Turning to Councillor Joseph's fantastic questions. Is there a direct link between training and behaviour? I think that it's easier to evidence a link between a lack of training and behavioural default. If you ask me, looking at the majority of the issues which I've encountered since I joined the council, the members concerned very well know what the rules are and what their standard, the required standard of conduct should be. They just they choose not to obey them for whatever reasons, and that is an issue which concerns me a lot. And I think we need to give some further thought to. But I'm not sure that it is a result of a lack of training. Essentially, we do training firstly to make ourselves compliant with legal obligations. Yeah, that's my first duty, if you like, as a monitoring officer. The second is to try to make councillors' lives more manageable and happy, because there's a lot of expectation placed on members of the council with from the public, and they can be quite oppressive burdens to carry sometimes. So you will see also we've put in some more, if you like, soft skills, how to manage stress and how to manage conflict and stuff like that, because I think those are largely forgotten in the past. If you have any suggestions on appropriate targets and measures and how we can extrapolate from hopefully a reduction in the number of complaints to this committee, and I mean obviously I think it will be a direct result of my appointment, but whether that proves to be the point or not, I don't know. But if you have any things you want us to consider, very, very happy to take those on and to see if there can be some direct attribution. Your second point was about setting minimum standards. We do, for example, in relation to planning, I'd say, and licensing, where members' involvement is subject to an understanding of the rules which are laid out by government as well as by ourselves. It's an interesting point, and one which I think is worthy of consideration on another occasion, most probably, whether we should incentivise or members' attendance at training events, because they can just, with the exception of the ones which I've said which are mandatory, members can choose whether they attend or not. You can, and it has been done in other places, incentivise members to attend in a number of different ways. You can feed them. You can name and shame them by publishing registers of who's attended and who hasn't. You can pay them for attendance if you so wish, subject to the independent remuneration panel's recommendations. So there are things you can do. Whether you should do them, whether you should need to do that or not, I think it all matters for members to debate and to reach a view on. A lot of it is peer pressure amongst members and from within your political groups. Different groups will take a different view on whether attendance at any particular training is required or not. But again, open to suggestions from the members present. And you had the third point, which was social media training. Couldn't agree more. Beg your pardon?
What would you say success would look like in 12 months from now?
In terms of all of it.
Yes, so, I mean, you missed the last question when I said, how will this committee know that the investment in member training has resulted in better governance, better decision-making and higher standards of conduct?
I think it is... So again, to you, Chair.
So I would say something like, are there clear goals that we're working towards as a standard committee? How do we know that this standards committee is effective? How do we know that we are doing what we are supposed to be doing as, you know, as the committee, as the chairman? How do we measure our success as councillors for this particular committee? Otherwise, it's just a committee for decoration if there is no evidence to what we are actually doing in here.
Well, there are a number of empirical measures, namely how many complaints do we receive. So, I mean, some councils don't receive complaints because the members of the public or other members don't think it's any point in complaining. That doesn't mean that they've got good behaviour, it just means they don't get complaints. So one might look on our slew of complaints as being that we're all very diligent and think it's a fantastic process and that it adds value. I would say one really important measure is the standard of conduct within meetings of the council, which, you know, again saw last week a very difficult meeting, and last night at the Open Scrutiny again, very difficult meeting, and obviously it is a matter for members how they conduct themselves, but the targeting of officers, the naming of officers, the use of obscene language, it just isn't how it's supposed to be. And so I think the absence of those things would be a very good thing, and we've all got to be open-minded about what we do to change things to bring that about. And I would encourage, through this committee, members to you know, reach out within their political groups and between their political groups to try and find new ways where we can bring consensus and bring harmony, because we really cannot go on in that way. So I think that is a really important measure, and I think it's important for the council, it's important for our reputation and our ability to recruit and retain staff, and it's important for you know, the avoidance of intervention from central government, frankly. In terms of some softer measures, you know, did members enjoy? Did members feel better equipped as a result of the training? Do they think there were gaps in the training programme which could be addressed? Do they feel that they are, you know, we haven't listed them here, though, also IT training and training on how to use systems and processes within the council, which are fairly impenetrable. I'm not sure I even understand them after 3 months here. Yeah, those are some softer measures. But can we have fewer complaints, and complaints that are resolved more quickly and to the satisfaction of complainants, because we have an absence of that at the moment as well.
Councillor Baggott.
Sorry, Mr. Greenberg. It's very rare I would deign to disagree with you, but I don't think we can link behaviour with training standards, and I don't believe that you can say that somebody's had loads of training and therefore their behaviour will change, because behaviour, when it's abhorrent, is just abhorrent, whether you're well trained or not. If anything, it just makes you more successful in going about the business of being abhorrent. I mean, in my real job, which is financial services, we have an expectation of having to do continuing professional development, and the idea behind that is that you are professional enough that you want to learn and you want to provide the best service you can to your clients. And again, councils, you would hope, on the whole, want to provide the best service they can to residents. So even financial services has recognised you can't necessarily measure the success of training, because everybody learns in a different way, everybody evaluates in a different way, and everybody applies things in a different way. But what you do is you have the mechanism that's there to demonstrate that people have the resources if they need it. And I think that's what we're doing and providing via the standards regime. We are making sure that no councillor can say, oh, the reason I failed here was because I didn't have a resource. The reason I failed here is I didn't know about stuff. The reason I couldn't do this job was I didn't have enough training. And that's where we can set the measure that if we've got councillors that are asking for something and not getting it, we've failed. If we are offering training and it's not taken up, then that's on the members themselves. So it is a bit of a balance between what we want to achieve as a council and also what the members of that council want to achieve within that.
If I'd like to say something, I must admit, I'm a new councillor from the beginning of May, and I've tried to take in every piece of training that I could, and it's been difficult, because it's been like 2 or 3 times a week at different times, evenings, mornings, whatever. And there have been, I think, gaps in the training, and in some cases the training has sort of put the cart before the horse. I've had some bits of training that I think I should have had before, and they've come afterwards. But in general, I think there has been a lot of training put on. Whether it was all needed, I don't know. But that's my personal opinion of my experience of since the middle of May. That's my experience of training.
Councillor Journet.
Councillor Journet.
Thank you very much, Chair. First, I'd like to thank Councillor Joseph for her questions earlier. It was really nice to see a Labour member contribute positively to a meeting when their group leader isn't present. So it's proof that in the pudding there that it is possible. I think the main point here around the standards is that if there's a will, there's a way. However, we do rely on group leaders to drive that good behaviour, and I think I would echo exactly what Councillor Baggott said earlier in regards to that. Just some feedback in terms of the training from a group leader perspective. I think there needs to be more hands-on, face-to-face training than Zoom and on Teams. I think the problem there is you kind of lose the passion of the session, and I think the sessions we have had in person, and I would speak for myself and a lot of group members who have raised this, that actually was far more beneficial being face-to-face in the moment rather than on Zoom. I think that's very much a COVID-style training mechanism. I think if we can get more face-to-face, more hands-on, more, even situations like this where maybe new chairs can come forward and there could be like a mock committee. We can have a number of members or officers to help drive through good behaviours on being a chair, but also doing it in a way which can be considered good chairing of the meeting. So that's my feedback on the whole thing. But I think around standards behaviours and behaviours for standards, I think we do rely heavily on group leaders to drive that good behaviour. So hopefully, like I said, if there's a will, there's a way, and I'm hoping that we can have far higher standards as a council moving forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
No, just again, firstly to reassure Councillor Baggott that without being sycophantic in the least, we are in full agreement. Actually, I did make the point that the members who I had seen in default in their behaviour were not members who are unaware of the standards required of them. So I think we are in full agreement on that. So training isn't the answer there. It's compliance which is the problem. I think, Chair, we've had an extensive training exercise, which was put on at short notice, and I apologise at the beginning that it wasn't as nap as I would have liked it to be in terms of the sequencing and timing of meetings. But why don't we do a survey of members and ask them to say, did you attend any of the meetings? What did you think of them? Did you think they were better in person or online? That's how we can provide a better service, isn't it? By asking for customer feedback. Yeah. And you are the customers, really, and you're responsible for the customer experience in this respect.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to call you Mr. Mayor. I do apologise. 2 points I'd like to make. First one, we used to, Councillor Baggott may remember it, this is how long ago it was. I count myself in that, Councillor Baggott, so it's self-deprecating if needs be. But the Mayor of the Council would meet with group leaders, say the Monday night before full council, and there'd be a full rundown on everything that was going to be done. Agendas, who's going to make announcements, not the contents, because obviously there's politics. The administration want a few rabbits in their hats, and it's down to the opposition to sneak those rabbits out the hat. Maybe that needs to be reinstated on a Monday evening, not Monday 2 o'clock, but Monday evenings, the Monday before full council, Councillor Brown. That's right. So there'd be a few days, because the reason why it was a Monday evening for Councillor Brown's benefit was because the political groups would have their group meetings, and that would be relayed back to their groups. The groups could have their discussions, and I think that would help diffuse some of the problems we've had. But I think COVID used to killed off those, yes, Councillor Baggett is agreeing himself. Wasn't me getting my timeline wrong. Killed off those Monday night briefings. You had the monitoring officer, the mayor, group leaders and civil servants that would help organise the meeting. And that took a lot of sting out of the tower. I do remember Councillor Dadds, when he was mayor, they were a bit contentious, to be fair, weren't they, Councillor Baggett? And he nods in agreement. But he would still have those briefings, and I think if you hadn't had those briefings, it could have got quite salty. So they were helpful.
Yes.
My second point, we talk about training. One of the swords of Damocles hanging over this council is to do with planning. Last week, Epping Forest Council lost their abilities to make planning decisions because the government chose to enact the Town and Country Planning Act of 1990. And the reason I say that, when we had to pass the local plan previously, some legal types will tell you whatever you want to hear if you're paying their bill. I say some, so I don't get myself in trouble, but that's the general feel. And they was telling members, well, look, if you get rid of your local plan, it's your decision. Your local plan's your thing. Your local plan's this. I mean, we were lucky because we was threatened with the county council taking over to write our local plan. And as a planning authority, we are on thin ice. We've been smart the last few years to make sure we're on the right side of that ice. But I think as the planning committee meets and as we deal with the local plan, that members know this inside out of all the risks so they can make the right advice. I mean, we heard during the previous municipal year fair arguments made against the planning application, but was we on safe ground refusing those planning applications because of those arguments? Even though those arguments were morally correct, in planning law they wasn't, and at a possible appeal or not, we could be in hot water. And it would give someone in Whitehall the ability to go, never mind, Basildon Council, we'll take your powers away and put developers first. And that's when residents lose completely, lose hand over fist. So I think not just what we have this week, the legitimate planning training so members can sit on the planning training, but a full understanding of planning law. Because as I speak to my residents, when a plan application pops up, I say to them, the first thing is, in a court, if you're in trouble, you're innocent till proven guilty. The National Policy Planning Framework has all planning applications the other way round. They're all deemed approved unless the planning authority can find reasons for refusal. And that's the first thing we have to deal with. So there's what I'm trying to allude to. I think we need something in depth with this local plan coming up, because the last thing any person, I hope to say this in this room, would want us to lose control of planning functions and the government intervenes and just does terrible things to the borough, because it will be the Wallies from Whitehall that will take no local considerations into account and they'll do what the developers want. So we need something in place so members know the rules almost, never just, but almost as well as the people we're going to have to be dealing with in Whitehall to make sure we get that local plan passed, because we do not want to lose powers of planning.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Jenny.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just in regards to the training around the planning, I think Councillor Smith makes a valid point there. I think we definitely do need to have some good training there. I note that we do have some booked in. Is it tomorrow night? Tomorrow night. So thankfully we can definitely get the right training there. I think just in regards to our current planning position, thanks to the great chairing of Mo Larking, one of his own independent councillors, we are in the green. We have built thousands upon thousands of houses on our green belt over the last 2 years, which means we're now in the green in regards to the planning inspectorate. So even if we were minded, I'm not prejudging any application right now, but if we are minded to say no based on the right reasons, then I think we can be safely assured that we will not be losing our planning powers anytime soon. Thank you very much, Chair.
Yeah. But can I just make a general point in response and acknowledgement of the contributions from members on that? My mission is to ensure that the government doesn't intervene in Basildon Council's exercise of functions at all, and to give them no cause for wishing to do so. which is, I think, their default position, actually. They don't want to interfere in local council governance and decision-taking unless they have to. But I agree with all that was said about training. There is specific planning training which is taking place, well, the first of which is taking place tomorrow night. There is new guidance, statutory guidance from the Ministry, which I think Councillor Smith will be aware of. And certainly if you attend tomorrow night, you'll be even more aware of. I will be attending tomorrow night because I need to be aware of. But it is very important that where the council is exercising quasi-judicial functions, it takes account of all relevant factors and does not take account of irrelevant factors. And I think there has been some cause for concern that there was a creeping spread of irrelevant considerations manifesting themselves across a whole range of council functions in the recent past, and I'm happy to say that that seems to be receding, and I want to keep it going in that direction. I'm very grateful for all the contributions that have been made. I've made a few notes of things to take forward, including the member survey, you know, if you want to come back with further suggestions of what you should do, or whether you think it's value for money, or so forth, I will make sure that before the next set of elections, whenever they may be, we have a programme of training which is on foot for new members. And I think we ought to have there ought to be training provided to refresh members' skill sets on a planned programme. I think Councillor Baggott was referring to continuing professional development. We certainly have in the Solicitors Regulation Authority, and you know, it's a good idea for the authority to keep that in view for its elected members.
Councillor Smith?
I just wanted to clarify, following the comments made by Councillor Jeannet, I was making reference to the local plan processing, because Councillor Baggott and I was there till 3 o'clock in the morning. How many times did we count the word basically?
Yeah.
That's a private joke for members of the time. So we really want to get this local plan wrapped up, done, but members need to know it inside out, because we will get bamboozled with a lot of gobbledygook along the way.
Well, Councillor Smith, I know that the leader of the council is in the chamber this evening and will no doubt be taking careful note of all you say. Okay, next item.
Right, next item on the agenda is social media policy.
Me again, Chair, but not for long, I think. The Council has been considering for some time the introduction of a social media policy which would be advice to members, not mandatory, but there would be some training offered around it, and the policy which appears before you today is largely based on the policies and guidance issued by the Local Government Association, which seems to stand many other councils in good stead. So it's put to you for consideration today. I'm not a social media expert. I don't monetize my social media accounts, or barely use my social media accounts for that matter. But I would say that any members who do so monetize their social media accounts shouldn't be speaking on this item. They should leave the room, in fact, because it's
Councillor
GDPR.
Sorry, who should leave the room?
Any members who monetise their social media accounts should leave the room because it's a disclosable pecuniary interest.
Oh, that's okay. I missed the monetising bit. I thought you said anybody who's got a social media account should leave the room.
No,
You're
quite entitled to have an account.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to make an amendment, if possible, to the recommendation. And the reason for that is those members that have known me long enough know that I am boring as hell when it comes to scrutiny and what we should be doing with scrutiny and how scrutiny works. And I think it is slightly perverse if we are expecting Cabinet members to go to scrutiny with new policies. And that's what the Civil Service guidance says. You know, if you've got a new policy, the first port of call should be scrutiny. You work with them, you tell them what you're thinking, they help you to develop scrutiny as well as challenge it, and then you take it through. And I don't think that this policy has actually seen scrutiny. It certainly didn't see scrutiny last year when I sat on the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for scrutiny to be able to get its teeth into it, to have a look at it. They can invite members of the Standards Committee if they want, but I think that it is a perfect opportunity for scrutiny to just do their job and to make sure that it is something that's fit for purpose and would work for us as a council.
Chair, through you if I may, I'm just a bit concerned about the confusion of roles. Scrutiny is restricted to scrutinising proposals of the executive. They have no purview at all in relation to the non-executive functions of the council. This committee is a non-executive function of the council, and therefore it is the scrutiny function just doesn't exist so far as this is concerned. Now, I think what the council is trying to achieve is a wider review of the policy and perhaps engagement with group leaders or others within the council structures, a wider base of support or comment or not support, as the case may be, for the introduction and the contents of the social media policy. I think I'm right in saying that's your objective. I just don't think that sending it to the scrutiny committee is the right thing to do, because it sort of confuses their role and function.
Well, you're the monitoring officer, so I'm not going to sort of argue in that respect.
Twice in a night.
But where my thinking is that if this is a policy which members are supposed to abide by, who actually provides the sanity check that they thinking has been right for that abiding? Who is it that actually sets what the consequences are if you don't abide by it? And who actually sets the tone of voice, if you like, for what's expected with social media going forward? Social media has been the bane of this council since social media first surfaced from wherever it surfaced from. And I think that across the country, people are still struggling with the usage of social media, how it's worked. I mean, we've even got legislation coming through now to stop 16-year-olds accessing social media. So it is a constantly moving and morphing medium. And I think that we need to therefore make sure we don't put ourselves in a position of having a policy which either hasn't actually reflected that adequately, or where there is no teeth to it if somebody doesn't comply by it. And I know that this isn't executive, but to expect members to actually abide by something where they haven't had the ability to at least challenge it or at least ask questions about it just seems a bit uncomfortable to me. But, you know, as I say, you're the monitoring officer and I'll be guided totally by you.
Chair, I'm not against the proposal for it to go somewhere else for further consideration if that's what the committee wants. I just don't think scrutiny is the right place for it to go. In terms of the provenance of this and how it gains wider acceptance, the proposal before you is to put this to the full council for adoption, and that's where it would get its further hearing and no doubt kicking. I'm not cruising for leading with my chin on this. I think if members feel that there needs to be further reflection on it, I'm not against that at all. I want it to be accepted. I want it to have as wide a hearing and support as possible, because at the end of the day we're self-editing, aren't we? What I'm concerned about is we shouldn't just continue in perpetuity without a policy at all, because it's more difficult to judge people for being in breach of something if there's no policy in existence. So I think those things have got to be held somewhat in balance. If the committee is minded to have further reflection on it, I think the right thing to do would be maybe to defer it to its next meeting and to ask the representatives of the various groups here to take it back through their group system. If there are any questions or comments, we're happy to take them within that forum as well as within any other, so that we can have a revised proposal or an accepted proposal for the next meeting of this committee.
Well, Mr Greenberg, I was just about to suggest something similar, so you stole the words right out of my mouth. I will second your proposal.
Hey, I can't make proposals. I'm not Councillor Greenberg, despite popular rumour, but I'm happy to be guided by you.
In that case, can I propose the monitoring officer's proposal? Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? No? You want to speak on it?
You want to speak on the substantive motion, so
Yep.
let's deal with the amendment first. Is there a seconder to Councillor Babbitt? Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith?
The cross-party working is very well noted tonight.
All in favour?
Any other speakers on the amendment? I think Councillor Joseph wants to speak on the amendment.
All right.
There's quite a few things I would like to raise. But before I even start, I wanted to know, like, does the social media guidance address the photographing and publication of fellow councillors?
So can you turn your mic on? I can't quite hear what you're saying, Councillor.
Apologies, sorry. I said, does the social media guidance address the photographing and publication of fellow councillors during meetings for political commentary or ridicule? What safeguards exist to ensure that social media is not used to target individual councillors attending councillor business? Because while we're in this meeting, Councillor Jonet thought it was wise and smart and respectful to take a picture of me while I was just looking on my phone, posts it on Facebook while we're in a standards committee meeting, ridiculing me. Now, this has been sent to me by one of our residents who happened to follow him. It's not necessary. He doesn't need to do this. It's going against what we're even here to discuss today. That's even just one, because clearly he has a lot to say about the whole social media thing himself, but I'm not here to name any names or anything, but I wanted to address a few points. So my question is simple. So if councillors are expected to conduct themselves appropriately online, what protection exists for councillors who become the target of sustained campaigns of hostility, abuse, rumours, misinformation and intimidation? At what point does political disagreement become harassment? And at what point does criticism become intimidation? At what point does hostile online environment become a real-world safeguarding concern? Because the reality is that some councillors are now attending meetings knowing that they will be subjected to abuse and personal insults and hostilities from members of the public who have been exposed to months of inflammatory rhetoric online. So who's responsible for that? And who intervenes when it escalates? And who protects councillors when online hostility starts spilling into council meetings and public spaces? And if the answer is nobody, then personally I struggle to understand how a social media policy alone addresses the underlying problem. Now, I would also like to understand how this policy intends to deal with misinformation and what responsibility falls upon councillors who publish allegations that prove to be inaccurate. I've been a victim of that myself. What responsibilities falls upon councillors who allow false information to be spread unchecked? And what responsibility falls upon councillors who create an environment where hostility towards individuals become normalised? Because a social media policy that focuses solely on how councillors speak whilst ignoring the consequences of what they encourage is only addressing half of the problem. So a further question, much has been said about, behaviour and social media, but what confidence should councillors have in this policy when there are historic complaints which members believe remain unresolved, and this goes back to what Kerry actually said in the beginning of the meeting. There's quite a lot of things that haven't been resolved here. How can members be expected to trust future enforcement if they have very little confidence in how previous complaints have been handled? A policy without accountability is simply just guidance, in my opinion. And what assurance can this committee give that standards will be applied consistently regardless of position, regardless of political affiliation or seniority? Because I note that much of the discussion this evening has been about various other things. However, social media conduct is broader than just written comments, as you can see what has just taken place just now. And I just wanted to know, does this guidance also extend to public photographs? Because I think it's despicable. I don't participate in online anything. I'm not into it. I don't subscribe to it. But I have seen constantly, time and time again, individuals going online, harassing councillors. I can show you screenshots. I don't think there's a lot of rage baiting going on online, and it's firing up the residents. And as much as we can sit here and talk about how full council was never at peace, but we must understand that it's due to the rage baiting that's going on online. It starts off as a seed, and that seed has grown, and those same faces come to our domain, public domain, during full council, and they are very expressive. And we are humans, we are councillors, we represent the residents. But if these residents are also attacking councillors based on what has been fed to them, that's also something that should be reviewed in the social media policy. There has to be something that is done about residents that come and constantly disrupt meetings, because they are disruptive to meetings. If they were not here, to be quite honest, I mean, I've been a councillor for quite some time now, and I have seen the Conservatives and the Labour go on at each other, but at the end of the day, we get the meeting done. I have seen Kerry say his views and they boo him, but at the end of the day, the meeting is done. But this fire that has been, this gaslighting that has been fed to the general public, and the same faces show up to the same meetings spewing their hate and their comments on particular individuals, and now some individuals don't even feel safe. The minute they leave this council building, they're constantly feeling attacked. I mean, look at me. I finished a council meeting one day, and a member of the public had the audacity to come and approach me. And all I just said to her was that you're lucky that I'm not a councillor, because I have a right, I have an image to protect. If I wasn't a councillor, I probably would engage in all this bickering, but I'm not the one to do that with you. And there shouldn't be any kind of communication with me and, you know, the resident, to the point where she's coming to my face. She feels very comfortable approaching councillors, pointing to their faces. It's all part of social media bullying. It's part of harassment. Just because I'm a councillor doesn't mean that my views, my opinions, my feelings are not valid. It does. Just because a leader is a leader doesn't mean that his views, his opinions, they're not valid. Everybody's opinion is valid. I feel like how this social media policy, how it is carried out from now to when it's actually in action, I think it's very crucial, not just for us as councillors, but also the residents. Something needs to be done for residents that keep thinking that it's okay to be, you know, interjecting during meetings. I think it's repulsive.
Councillor Smith.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot in what Councillor Joseph said that I agree with. This document, I take the view of Councillor Baggott, it needs to be worked on.
Yes, 100%.
The point made by Councillor Joseph about filming, I'm going to speak in general terms, not about any particular case. Now, there is bits of information that is not contained in this document. So say, for example, I don't know, I saw Councillor Baggott shopping, and his doctor said you mustn't eat cream cakes, and I saw him pick up a tray of cream cakes, and there I am with his phone, go, oh, look, there he is, defying his doctor getting cream cakes in Waitrose. Now, that report doesn't warn me that I'm subject to the Data Protection Act. So Councillor Baggott could say to me, I would like to see all images that you hold of me on your electronic devices.
Exactly.
This is not contained in that document. So if members of the council want to get busy with their phone and go, oh look, all this, yep. Caught him picking his nose in the toilet, I put that all on Facebook. You know, not that I've ever done it. I was brought up properly. It needs to be contained in that document. But I think one thing that needs to be addressed, and it's not a criticism of the press team, this is something that needs to happen. Now, there's several venues for, I call it fake news book, because that's what it is. If I wrote a letter to the Echo saying Councillor Baggott's from Mars, the Echo would be like, we're not printing that. If you've got any proof to back that up, maybe, but we're not printing that. That's just absolute rubbish. But if I go on fake news book, Councillor Baggott's from Mars. He's parked his spaceship on a double yellow line. There's no control. It's completely false. It's dishonest. It's libelous. Whatever you want to call it, it's a lie. But because these are American tech companies, our laws do not have the fangs to deal with them. And that's why in 21 I chose to come off fake news book. Because there's a lot of community pages, so you try as a councillor, if someone emails you messages on there like, oh, this tree branch has fallen down, can this be done? I go, yep, fine, I'm on the case, blah, blah, blah. And it just got so... I mean, one example I can refer to, someone asked about, is the council tax going up? There was a vote at Essex, and I went, yes. So a candidate, I won't name parties, said, no, you're telling lies. I went, well, it has gone up. Ah, but it's only this part. I said, OK, you refuse to pay that increase and see what happens. You'll be in court for non-payment of your council tax. and it was just getting silly. And I like to think of us how I would say to all councillors, we should be like the staff at Debenhams. You can have customers that disagree with you, namely your constituents, and you try and deal with that in the best way forward. But would you ever see in stores when Debenhams was open going, you piece of X, Y and Z, I think you're X, Y, blah, 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 and all the profanities? You didn't. So that's why I chose to come off Fake News Book, because the business makes its money from nastiness, from hatred, from vitriol, and people will be fired up on the left to attack Reform, and there will be people on the right to attack Labour. And it gets nasty, it gets poisonous, people's individual properties get targeted and other things. It's totally unacceptable, and we're trying to attract the best walks of all life to stand and represent as councillors. So a possible solution would be the press team get busy on these community pages. So it just could be called Basildon Council, someone in the press team has a phone and it's on call. So for example, that unpleasant fire at Rook Yards the other day, they could just jump on it and say, we are doing this and we are doing that for the residents. If there is a problem, blah, blah, blah. So it stops ward councillors feeling the need to go on these pages, because say, for example, a Reform person went on the page and made a comment. A Labour person might have a pop. If a Labour person went on that page, someone definitely who's got right of centre views would have a go at them. And it just gets nastier and toxic. So that would be step number one if we're having a social media policy, that the council's press department have someone out of hours with the council's accounts, their Fake News Book page, member of all these so-called community pages. So when these issues happen on a bank holiday Monday, out of hours, someone can pop on there, thanks for letting us know. We have got onto the Parks Department. That fallen tree branch in the middle of the road will be dealt with as quick as humanly possible. So the situation arises, if people want to make pernicious comments that we think Basildon Council's run by the Illuminati and any other rubbish they might want to write on Fake News Book, doesn't matter. Does not matter. So that would be one. But I do think this document needs to make reference to data recording and footage, because any member of the council can make that request for data information, and there is no warning, absolutely no warning whatsoever, and it could get another member in trouble. And in conclusion, my view, personal view on Fake News Book is, I would like to quote Mark Twain, where he says, never argue with stupid people, for they will beat you up with years of experience. So I would say all politicians, just get off Fake News Book, do your surgeries, just be like a 1950s, 60s councillor. And if people want to sit on their phones because there's nothing on the TV, just looking for a politician to attack, why paint a target on your back? And then these people will find something better to do with their lives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Beggar.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank Councillor Josie for her words. I've got to say I 1000% agree with everything she said. I really do. And there's no politics here in what I'm saying. It's fact. I totally agree with what Councillor Joseph said. And I believe that she's not on social media, because if she was, she wouldn't realise how deeply ironic everything she said was when it comes to what's been going on social media over the last 2 weeks, which I know that you will be aware of, and everybody else. And the thing is that when people use social media and weaponise it to attack councillors in a nasty and untrue way, they forget that there are lunatics out there who take social media as being gospel. And God forbid, we've seen what happened with the MP David Amis. We've seen other people. If we're not careful with the behaviour that is being exhibited on social media right now, we are going to get the potential for tragedy. And then it'll be too late to be wringing our hands and saying what we do about it. And that's where the social media policy, I think, needs to be looked at in a slightly different way. I do wonder, and I know you're a sister, you might feel this, there has to be a way where you can give some teeth to the policy. Because we rely upon the Constitution, but the Constitution has an unwritten expectation that the people that are within the Constitution will behave in a reasonable and sane manner, and that when something is, if they are censured, they will comply with that censuring. If they're asked to leave the chamber, they will leave the chamber, because that's the normal, sane and sensible thing to do. But if somebody doesn't, what we found is we have no mechanism to actually enforce that. So the same way with the social media policy, if we can't find a tag or a way of making that when someone posts hateful and despicable and untrue allegations or comments about a member, there is no comeback, why would they not continue to do it? There has to be a way, we need to find a way to actually ensure that when people post this, that there are real, proper sanctions with teeth to prevent people doing it in the future. And by the way, I also agree with everything Councillor Smith said.
Councillor Joseph.
Thank you. So I also just wanted to bring to your attention that a lot of this activity has actually flared up since June 2025, thereabout. And I know you say I'm not on social media. I am. I've just got very thick skin, so I just tend to not engage. I just don't engage. But I do see everything that's on there, and I think it's despicable because these are councillors that we're talking about. So there was an attack this week that has led to an officer being hospitalised. I'm not sure if you all know about that. And this particular officer is on suicide watch. I believe his name is Ted? Yes. Yes. So, and that literally all started off because of two councillors within this council, and that's Councillor Gardner and Councillor Jeunet. I'm sorry, I know you said don't name names, but if we do not, it's interesting that. Please, I'm speaking. Just wait.
No, point of order.
Okay.
23A, impugning a member.
How is it impugning a member if it's on social media?
You're saying something that's factually not true.
There.
Prove it.
I will prove it. I will provide the
Don't
evidence.
come at me with your absolute rubbish.
It's not. First of all, don't insult me, because
that's tarnishing my reputation as a councillor.
Okay.
And I do not agree with what has just been said.
We've had a very harmonious and collaborative meeting. Would you? Thank you, Councillor. We've got your point of order. It would be helpful if we could. I know you're trying to make an example out of something which you've recently experienced, but if there are allegations about member conduct, there's a process to go through to determine them. So could you withdraw the comments about the named members and keep it in the generality?
if I was to raise this as a standard complaint, would that be better? Because there is evidence. We can bring the evidence. No problem. Fine. I'll move on with my comment, but I just thought to put that out there. Because this person is on suicide watch. And all of this started because of a comment that was made on Facebook. Now, a lot of people have very fragile mental health. We don't know how strong people are. Like I say, I've got thick skin. So to be quite honest, I couldn't care less what people put on there about me because it's not fact. It's an opinion. You have an opinion. But I'm not. A lot of people are not built the way I'm built. Now, if every councillor is logging in online and they're seeing things, you know, like you said, are being fed and people are taking, you know, what's on Facebook as factual, can you imagine what councillors are going through? I mean, we're already dealing with residents, casework and all of those type of things. Our daily lives, some of us have children. For example, a colleague of mine is heavily pregnant. But because of this attitude that is being displayed in the public, one of the members of public is following us into the car park. Our lives are not safe anymore. And I know it sounds a bit exaggerated, but that's the truth. Imagine you're going home and you have a weird individual from the general public filming you. Why are you filming us? How has it gotten to that point? People are thinking it's okay to do this because they don't believe in the standards process. They don't believe in the standards committee. They think that they can do things and they can get away with it. Now, I would like to make a formal request, and I'm sure I would have the rest of my group team leaders and everything back me up on this one. I do not understand why our group leader, who is supposed to be a respected member of the public, whether he's not in administration or not, why is he sitting at the back, directly where the angered residents are? And every meeting, and I sit directly in front of my leader, and I can hear what those residents are saying about him. Now, no matter how composed one can be, there is only so much you can take. I personally feel placing him in that position as a former leader is, number one, is outrightly disrespectful because you're undermining his position. Why would a leader be sitting at the back? Where the opposition, we should be sitting either here or here. Now, I know it might not be linked to social media, but this is how it links to social media, because there's a lot of hate and gaslighting that has gone into it. If you remember, I mentioned something about the general public and how a lot of them are coming with all this anger and venom. Now, you placing the person that they're targeting the most directly behind them, we're trying to have a full council, and they're harassing him. They're harassing him, they're harassing his wife, they're harassing members of the public. I stand up, they make a comment, and we're supposed to conduct ourselves properly. I feel that a formal order should be put in whereby we are moved. Because if you want to handle the situation, if you want to handle the harassment, you want to handle because social media bullying is separate from physical. It's now seeping from social media into the physical. People's mental healths are being bothered. I'm the only woman of colour in the council. I've had racial comments being made about me. Do you think I feel safe walking down the street at night and I have weird people that have come into the council building telling me that they're going to beat me up, accusing me of voodoo? Like, why? Do you understand? You have to put yourself in my shoes. You may not get that type of harassment. I'm not going to assume that you don't. But as councillors, in the past months, it's been back to back. I have never been approached by a resident like the way I have been approached by residents in the past couple of weeks. I have never seen residents so rude and aggressive the way I have seen them in the past couple of weeks. And to put us at the back directly in front of the people that want to harm us, I think the council needs to do something about that.
Well, I think, we can all,
Well,
it's not standard.
I think it's perfectly valid for Councillor Joseph to bring to the attention.
It may not be a standards issue,
to bring to the attention of the meeting.
it's a
concerns
duty of
that she
care,
has.
exactly.
We, at my suggestion, we instigated a new committee of the council at the annual meeting, which is called the General Purposes Committee. And one of the purposes of that is for that committee to agree the arrangements for full council meetings. We instituted it because there isn't a ruling group in the council. There isn't an administration group which has a majority. And so we have to find a way of cohabiting with one another and finding a way to conduct ourselves in a seemly way. So that issue will be on the agenda for the first meeting of the General Purposes Committee, which I think has now been set for the first couple of weeks of July. I can't remember. There's so many meetings being called at the moment that I can't keep them all in my head. But it is an important issue, and I know that it has generated friction in the chamber, which could have been avoided. And I am merely an advisor, despite popular rumour. I offer advice to those in the chair and to the leadership of the council as to how they might wish to conduct their meetings. But at the end of the day, it's your meetings, it's your council chamber. You can decide. The correct organ of the council to do that is the General Purposes Committee. I know that Councillor Smith is on that committee, and it comprises basically the group leaders of all the groups on the council. So I think they can take a lead in trying to resolve that issue. I hope that were they to do so, it would result in a marked change in the conduct of your group leader, who feels at ease naming and shaming and shouting expletives at officers who cannot defend themselves in meetings or online at all. And I think the way in which the Chief Executive's comments were received was shocking, actually. It really was shocking. I mean, I know there were issues of fact which they took issue with, but there are proper channels to do that. And if they find that the Chief Executive's explanations are wanting, there are channels with which they can take it. We're not here to discuss.
No, I'm not trying to have a debate with you.
And I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add something. So sorry to cut you. I just wanted to add something. I think, doesn't it come under standards? Like, I think it was Kerry that was saying something about before we used to go through the meetings and how the meetings were run and everything. I think we need to go back to that, because the reason why these type of meetings kick off, and this is just through me observing, a lot of things that are being said have not been reviewed. And if you're going to stand in front of the public and to me, I would consider it as gaslighting, because you're already gaslighting people that already clearly do not like the leader of the Labour Council, and you're now standing there saying things that he considers not to be true. Who reviewed the meeting? Who ran through the order of the meeting? Who approved these things? Nobody did. So if there is no census as to, like, there's no guidelines to guide people on what can be said and what can't be said, it surely falls under some sort of standards. I don't know if you'd agree with me, Kerry. It surely falls under some sort of standards, because, like, it's not right. It's not. You can't trigger someone and expect them to be quiet, and then they get let off the hook, and
Point of
nothing
order,
is
Chairman.
being done.
Point of order.
How do you just come in and say point of order?
Point of
Please
order.
don't be rude. Don't.
Point of order.
This is
23
not what the meeting is
20
about. You can't do
Hello,
that.
Mr.
You've
Chair.
just come in.
23A,
You've just come
impugning
in.
a member.
You've just come in. You cannot interrupt me while I'm talking. You
Take
are
the
not
point of
even
order.
here
Ask
for
to
half
speak
of the
right. Take the
meeting.
point of order.
You decided to go out and do whatever you wanted
Right,
to
I'll
do.
take your point of
You've
order.
just come in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. 23A, impugning a member. The Labour member tonight has accused myself and another member of putting an officer on suicide watch. I would implore that the member retracts her statement. If not, I would like to see that it goes through to a vote.
I dealt with it in the meeting. And
Yeah.
she did,
Well,
she did
you
withdraw
would
it.
you
So
were you were
let's-
late. If you were paying
not
attention,
take-
you would have heard
No,
that.
no,
part.
Yeah, she
let's
did.
move on.
Yeah, it's been noted. Yeah. Right, if we can get back to the agenda, social media policy. Please, we've got.
Can I just pick up something that Councillor Joseph? Beg your pardon. I will get the gist of it eventually. The informal channels are really important, and going back 30 years to when I was an elected member of a council, that's the only channels we had. You know, the standards regime hadn't even been invented then. That's how old I am, Councillor Smith. They only work by consent, don't they? Because the actual powers are vested in particular people and particular bodies of the council. So I certainly encourage, and will do everything I can to bring about those informal meetings. And I think, in fairness, the leader of the council is very much in favour of that, and indeed tried last night to reach some consensus at the Overview and Scrutiny Commission, which didn't work very well, I have to say, but that doesn't mean that we don't try again. So thank you for those comments. I think they are well made, and I think they should be taken up, and I will make suggestions in the right quarters at the right time. So we get back to social media policy.
Yeah, we're back on the social media policy, item 7. There was an amendment, yeah, a vote to defer.
I think the suggestion from Councillor Baggott was that we deferred it. He suggested to the Scrutiny Commission. I suggested that was the wrong body because it confuses the scrutiny of with simply the review of the policy more widely. And I think I suggested, which he took on, that the policy be deferred for consideration at the next meeting of this committee, and in the meantime the representatives of the various parties would take them back through their group structures for review and comments to come forward in time for the next meeting of the committee, and I don't remember when that is.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to wrap up on what's been spoken. Oh, sorry, your mic's still on, Mr. Chairman. It isn't helpful if we're all ripping each other apart. We've had the elections, and with respect, Mr. Chairman, to the civil servant heir, we are not going to move forward, even though you may disagree with the comments of the Labour leader. He is not here to defend himself. We're having a bit of a polite bad-mouthing match. It isn't helpful. As you said, there's due process, and anyone watching would think the civil service of the council is against particular members of the council, which, and you've indicated not. So I think it is helpful if any employee of the council doesn't criticise any members, unless they've been caught banked the rights for doing something wrong through the standards board. That would be fair comment. But I think this all relates to one point. There is a political vacuum. If the chief executive was here, he would testify to the amount of times I've growled at him when we was in administration that the council needs to restore its regular magazine to residents. And this is where the trolls, whatever you want to call them, can sit on these fake news book pages and write pretty much what they like, because the council is not there to put the record right. I was with the former leader several months ago through the town centre, and a resident approached us, and I said to him, and he was looking at the infographics on the development near the market, and I went, that looks good. And he goes, it was that bleeding Councillor Callaghan, he got that planning permission. I went, well, you're wrong. Oh, yes, I went, you're wrong. He got granted planning permission when Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister on appeal. So unless Gavin's crossed the floor to Conservatives, how could he have done that? And then you see Gavin next to me, and he was like, just scuttled off, wouldn't say a word to his face. And that's the point I'm making. There is a political vacuum. The council is not filling. That was partly on our watch. I growled to get the council magazine restored, and it's something this administration needs to work on. A residents magazine that most local authorities publish. It hasn't got to be like Town Hall Pravda every week. You know, the council leader has cured the blind, fed the X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but just a regular magazine. So anything that the council doing that's of public interest, residents can read the council side. If they disagree, they can take it up with their councillor or come to full council and ask a question. That helps to fill the political vacuum. And what we have seen tonight, and I'll be polite to everybody because I'm not seeking to criticise, is that it's all George Orwell and no war. We somehow, the civil servants of the council need to work with members to get them together. We've had the elections. This should be the period now. We all go like, oh, hello, Jeff, nice to meet you. You know, what brought you into this and talking away? We haven't had these conversations. It's like the Cold War in this council. You're on one side of the Berlin Wall, we're on the other side. Never seen this at Essex County Council. Never seen it anywhere. And I think it's down, and it's not a criticism, down to civil servants to lead on this. And it starts by them not attacking members, even though they may vehemently disagree with what they said. It doesn't help solve the process, because there will be elections and we can get into battle mode next March. But from now to March, it should be the civilised time where we all work together. But we're not. So I would say less of the Councillor Baggott said that about me, and less of what I said about Councillor Joseph, which I haven't, and I haven't said that, and nor has Councillor Baggott said anything bad about me. But that should all stop. That's the secret. But we're still in wartime footing. It's as if polling day's next week, and it can all stop if people want it to stop very easily. So I put that there, but I will reiterate, we must reinstate the council magazine so residents can find out what is going on, because when we come to deal with this local plan, you can imagine these conspiracy theories. They will think it is Christmas. They can sit on fake news book going, oh, they're building on this bit of land in Wickford for Sadiq Khan. They're building on this land for Pitsy, for all the boat boys. When every council has to have a local plan. Now, who those houses go to, that's a different debate. But that's what, but Mr. Mark Greenberg says about what's it got to do with social media policy. Because residents are putting stuff on social media, political parties are putting stuff on social media, people with a political angle are putting stuff on social media, and it leads to tension and more standards ball complaints. So if you fill the political vacuum by publishing a council magazine saying, this is why we have to do a local plan, because if we don't, the nasty people from Whitehall will come in and make it a whole lot worse. This is why I will always keep banging for that council magazine, to inform residents.
Right,
so
so
I
if we
shall
can,
draw that.
thank you very much. If we can get back onto the social media policy.
Before we
Item
continue,
number
can I
7.
call a point of order, please? 23C. I just wanted the monitoring officer. I know before we were talking about, you know, the social media stuff. You said something about Councillor Gavin. I don't think it's fair, because you told me not to name names, but then you went ahead and named him. So is it possible if you can also retract your statement?
I don't think I didn't name anybody, but I
Oh,
think
you
I
said-
referred to him by role. But look, it was a very difficult meeting last Thursday, and a lot of extraordinary things happened. I will retract any attribution to any particular member if that helps the meeting to move forward.
Thank you.
But the answer to the question of how do we police it and how do we enforce it is within ourselves. That is the answer, isn't it? We can't wait for people from outside to come in and tell us what is right and wrong. You are the judge and jury, and you are the enforcement mechanism for all of those things. Just on Councillor Smith's point about the council magazines, he knows, I'm sure, that Mr Pickles, when he was the Secretary of State, more or less banned council magazines. That's certainly not within the scope of this policy, but anyway. We've had a very, very wide-ranging debate, and you've been very generous with inviting members to speak several times, so I think we can probably
we'll get back on to...
move a deferral.
Yeah. So, if we get back to it, was there a motion?
Yes, there was.
There is a motion, yes, which Mr Weaver has already said, and we don't want to labour the point by going over it again, so I think...
No,
is
and
it clear that
it was seconded. Yep. So we'll vote on that. All those in favour? Yep.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay, so that's deferred. So item 8 now, the annual work plan, 26-27.
So, members will have received the work plan. It's not very populated at the moment because it's a new municipal year, and I think there's a number of things which members may wish to focus on. It's a matter for, I mean, I will bring forward to this committee those things which I think the committee ought to consider, but if there are things that it of its own motion wants to consider, then this is your opportunity to shout.
It wouldn't be a meeting if I wasn't speaking, Chairman. Sorry, I did wait.
Councillor Bagg.
Thank you. It wouldn't be a meeting if I wasn't speaking, Chairman. What I would like to see, if possible, is we keep being told that we acknowledge that standards have got no teeth, that it's completely useless, that it's a complete waste of time, but legislation is coming, changes are afoot. What would be useful is to have on the work programme an update as soon as those changes occur, so that we are well up to speed on what we can and can't do under the new super improved standards regime.
If and when the government brings forward proposals, you will be the second to know.
I just wanted to ask, why is there is a work program for this one, but there wasn't on the agenda last night for ONS, because we've got a lot of residents at home that are curious.
Well, Chairman, you'd be very indulgent if you.
The one that sent me the screenshot.
Can you?
Chairman, you'll be very indulgent if you allow Councillor Joseph to bring up the agenda for a different meeting here. But let me just say in passing, if it helps her, the Overview and Scrutiny Commission yesterday was there to deal with a call-in. It was not, if you like, the programmed meeting of the Commission, and the Chair of the Commission had written to all the members to invite them to nominate topics for the work programme for the year ahead. So, we're not here to debate that, obviously. The same applies to this, in that if there are items which members want us to focus on over the course of the year, I'm more than happy to add them to the work programme, which is before, and indeed, as we go through the year, the sort of relationship I like with the Standards and Privileges Committee is for us to have a discursive arrangement, and if members want things to be added, then they are added.
Before we move on, I'd just like to address something. I just wanted to clarify, we are in a standards committee, right? So if I make a comment, if I make a suggestion, it's quite unprofessional considering where we are, that we've got colleagues at the back bickering, laughing at me and making comments saying, oh, she's going to kill me, that's the urban step. Listen, no. I have been very professional tonight. Stop. I have been very professional tonight. I do not think she can't be calling. Listen.
Point of order.
Oh my God.
23B.
Come back to you.
This is the second time she's interviewed members today. No one said anything about that she was going to kill us.
You literally said it to my hearing. I will not lie while you were sitting there.
Thank you. So on that basis, that she's now attacked us twice. This isn't the first time that a that a member of the Labour
Mr.
Party
Samjane,
attacks
you
those.
can't intimidate me. Your lies don't get to me. You've posted a lot of rubbish about me on Facebook. You've accused me of things that no. It's not about that. You called me out on things that are not even true. So I know you to be quite a liar. But listen, I know exactly what I just heard. You laughed at me. You and Mr. Gardner laughed at me just now, bickering, saying that that's that urban stare. Look, she's gonna kill me. Listen, I heard you. But considering that we are in a standards committee, it's incredibly disrespectful and highly unprofessional to have this type of behaviour. It is. And Mr. Monitoring Officer, I'm not one to be disrespectful, but I will not stand to be disrespected. Do you see this? It's a standards committee. You need to do something about it. Mr. Chair, Mrs. Chair, and Vice Chair, this is not acceptable behaviour. It's a standards committee. This is the same. If this was a Labour Party member, you would say that we're interrupting a meeting. Laughing at me like that is considered harassment. I do know. Yes, you are harassing me. You're making me
Councillor
uncomfortable.
Councillor Joseph,
Stop it.
please.
Don't call me out. Correct him.
No, this is the
Correct
procedure.
him.
If you can please
Don't call
keep
me
quiet.
out. Don't say Councillor Joseph if you're not going to address him.
I am going to address him.
Thank you.
But I need you to be quiet first.
No, you don't tell me to be quiet. You asked me to calm
telling
down
you.
because he's just said something quite
I'm just
derogatory
saying,
and rude.
Could you please keep quiet?
No, can you please calm down? Don't tell me to be quiet because that means you're invalidating what I've just said. Can you please calm down? And I will calm down.
Councillor Joseph, can we just take a chill?
It's not a chill. Don't invalidate my feelings. I know what I heard. Don't do that to me. I don't like it.
We might need a doctor because the
Well,
Do not insult me.
you're not scream at me either.
Do not insult me.
Councillor Journo,
Do not
your
insult
point of
me.
order.
Don't gaslight me like a child.
Including a member for a second time, I think it's imperative that the...
Take the sentence out. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
We're not taking a vote.
No, on this issue if there's no further contributions.
Councillor Joseph, have you finished making your point and we can move on?
Yes, if you can address this behaviour, because it's exactly what we're talking about. You just spoke about the social media policy and how it seeps into the physical, and he's just sat there doing exactly what I spoke about in a standards meeting, and nobody's calling him out on that. I'm just going to be totally ignored. No problem. Thank you. At least the residents are watching.
Yeah, any more comments on the work plan for 26-27?
Let's move on
No.
to the updates on standards complaints in item 9.
Yeah, item number 9, update on standards complaints.
Thank you, Chair. So this item really just is to update the committee on the parlous situation which we have with the number of unresolved complaints. Now, I had a letter from the former Vice Chair, Councillor Baker, which I've been dilatory in responding to, I have to say, but I have now sent him a response. Because he was questioning why at the annual council meeting I laid at the feet of this committee the responsibility for failing to progress the matters which have been referred, or at least being complained of. Shall we simply say the system was not working? We had a situation in which there were complaints going back to September 25, which have not been resolved, and that's not satisfactory for the complainants. It's not satisfactory for the subject members. It's not satisfactory for the council. We're clearly not dealing with things as we should. There have been simply no referrals to investigation, when cases which would at first appearance be clearly apt for investigation have come before the committee. There have been long and detailed debates, but without any facts, because they've had an unsubstantiated allegation in the members' response and nothing else to determine, and yet they've determined no further action. And that, I know we've had now complaints to the Ombudsman as a result of those matters. So I'm trying to unblock a system which isn't working. I've adopted the process which is in place in the vast majority of councils, principal authorities in England, which is simply to say that when a complaint is received, there will be the initial considerations to whether it meets the criteria, is it within the scope of the acting as a councillor, all that sort of stuff, in a consultation with the independent person. And if it is a case which should be investigated, for the committee to have before it the details of what happened with an independent investigator having made a report, they will then be able to decide what further action, if any, takes place. And so it's not, as Councillor Smith was suggesting in council the other day, me usurping the role of members, and that's not taking place at all. And there will be a full report to this committee of any cases which I think do not meet the investigatory standard, and those obviously that do will come back with a report for members to decide upon. But clearly we have far too many unresolved complaints. We need to deal with them in a timely and effective manner. My approach is going to be to triage them into 4 groupings. First, to look at those which are now against members who have left the authority, unless there are overwhelmingly substantial reasons why an investigation should nevertheless take place. I think those must be closed. In relation to member-on-member complaints, there are a welter of them. We know that we have case law from the Supreme Court and the High Court here saying that members get a wide margin of appreciation in their freedom of speech because they hold elected office and they have the right to offend each other. I don't think we should encourage them to do so, but nevertheless that is an infringement on their freedom of speech should we try to stifle that through the standards regime. So unless there are very serious examples, I would discourage us from investigating at the cost of £5,000 to £10,000 a pop member-on-member complaints, but for them to be dealt with through informal channels, which have been much talked about earlier this evening. In relation to complaints by members of staff against the members' behaviour, those, I think, because they will often be accompanied by a grievance as well, need to be dealt with in a slightly different manner. And I think if the member of staff continues to feel aggrieved and that the member's conduct remains unacceptable, and the member refuses to apologise, or if there's a contested factual basis, then that needs to be investigated, and we'll need to invite those to take place. And then the final category will be for members of the public, and we've got agreed protocols in terms of the assessment standards about whether things are frivolous and vexatious, whether they're important, whether there's a public interest test that's applied, and I will follow those assessment criteria to the letter and set out in a reasoned note those which I think should go forward for investigation. When we get the investigation reports back, we will need to have a whole series of hearing subcommittees, which the committee will be invited to establish, and we need to get on and have some of these hearings and make some decisions on some of these allegations, and then the members' names can either be cleared or not, as the case may be, and the members of the public or the individuals who have made the complaints will also feel that there's been justice served to their complaints, although in some cases justice will be severely delayed beyond where it should have been. So that's the way in which I intend to deal with the new delegation to me in consultation with Mr Pearson and Mr Clode and whoever else may be coming forward in due course. And I will, of course, subject all those decisions to scrutiny by the committee in the appropriate form. Open to comments and questions from members. I deal with the members of the committee first and then to
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. There was a few mics on, sorry. Thank you. I still disagree with the change made at full council. We should be judged by our own peers. That isn't a criticism of the person doing the judging, but it's the general process of it. It's an old English thing, we should be judged by our own peers. But that is what it is. That can always be changed at a later date. This council has in the past, and Councillor Baggett has instigated this a few times, spoke to the LGA, we pay them a lot of money. Me personally, I'd end our LGA membership tomorrow and bank the money and spend it on cleaning up our parks, but it is what it is. Could we not have an LGA peer review of why we've got these outstanding complaints, how we're dealing with these complaints, because it is a lot for a local authority, rightly or wrongly, and it wouldn't hurt to have a fresh pair of eyes, unconnected with this council. We pay them a lot of money, so let's get something back from them, so they can go through, come back to a report and bring it to this council, how we're dealing with it and everything else. I just don't think it would hurt to have a fresh pair of unconnected eyes going over this. And if that requires a motion, happy to table that, and if anyone would like to second it, I'd be obliged.
Can I share some information with the committee? So firstly, the Chief Executive and myself have made an approach to the LGA to assist with the member behaviour issues here and through the political groupings of the LGA for them to offer some support. So they will of course be looking at what is the state of affairs, and I'm sure they will be making comments about that, which in due course, if they're appropriate to come back here, will come back here. Second thing is that at the request of our external auditor, we have commissioned a governance review, which is being undertaken, has now started work, and I'm sure that further details of that will be provided to members as the review progresses. So that is already on foot through an independent reviewer, and there's terms of reference which have been agreed with the external auditor. And if there are any matters to report as a result of that review, they will be brought back here or to full council, as the case may be. So those things are already on foot. It is something which I'm treating very seriously. It is probably the biggest obstacle to progress that the council faces at the moment, well, other than the budget. So it is receiving proper and serious attention on a regular basis by the executive leadership team of the council. And engagement with the political leaders as well. So I don't think it would be helpful to have a separate motion, simply because that work's already taking place, Councillor Smith. You haven't been cited on it, perhaps, but please take my word for it. There is plenty of work afoot.
So just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, we are doing a proper LGA or LGA peer review, or we're just speaking to...
No, we are not doing a peer review, Chair, through you, because the LGA declined our request for that. But we are engaging with the LGA on a number of levels. I know through the political groups is one, and the other one is through this governance inspection report.
Councillor Joseph should have hand up. Councillor Joseph.
Thanks. Oh, so yeah, I had like 3 questions, but I was gonna say, how does the committee ensure consistency of outcomes across different complaints so that members can be confident that standards are being applied fairly without favour? Number 2, where complaints remain dissatisfied with an outcome or process, what mechanisms exist to rebuild the confidence in the standards framework? And my 3rd question was, can the committee provide assurance that complaints will be considered on their merits regardless of changes in political administration, committee membership, or office structure, like, but then you said it's like, yeah, I agree with you.
Councillor Joseph has been on 3 scheduled briefs, I think, with her questions tonight. They've all been absolutely on point. Consistency, well, myself and the independent persons are there to offer some degree of consistency, because we will continue to report their views and my own recommendations on a case-by-case basis, and obviously those that remain for review by the committee. So you are an arbiter of consistency, and I'm sure that if you detect any inconsistency, that will be brought to attention. Where complainants remain dissatisfied, they essentially have two avenues of appeal. One is through judicial review, because it is a public function of the council, or the other is by reference to the local government ombudsman. And I know, as I said to you, I'm aware that at least one case has ended up there. It's clearly a failure of the process. If people are being so dissatisfied they think there's been maladministration, they may disagree with the decision, but they should at least see the process by which it's been achieved.
Yeah.
You know, non-determination would be quite an issue at the moment, wouldn't it, if you've had things outstanding for over a year. That has got to change, and by Christmas we will have made substantial progress on the resolution of these matters. You know, I hope I can rely on you to work with me and to ensure that consistency in the approach taken. There will obviously, I don't know how long I'm going to be here for. I'm an interim. I think I said when I first joined I was sort of the Nanny McPhee of monitoring officers. When I'm not wanted but needed, I'm here, and when I'm wanted but not needed, I'll go. But I remain at your disposal for the time being.
Councillor Janot.
I think
Sure.
Councillor Bagot first, and then Councillor Bagot.
I'll take Councillor Bagot first.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, the report is for noting, so I guess we would say it's noted. But I'm not a fan of a lack of a level playing field. When the playing field's tilted, it just somehow seems wrong to me in life, and that's any rule, really. Now, as a member, you alluded, or the morning officer alluded to member upon member, you know, allegations and complaints and everything else. Now, personally, as a member, I don't care if another member of the council wants to wander into fantasy land and gaslight the public about anything I may or may not do and cast aspersions, because that's for me to deal with. I'm not going to waste the time of a standards committee on something that I know will go nowhere and not actually end up with any positive result. But that's different when it comes to members of staff, because members of staff, as has been said time and time again, do not have the right to reply. And it is a odious form of bullying when any member uses their position as an opportunity to attack a council worker of any level within the council on the basis that somehow they're now invulnerable. That's not a level playing field anymore. That is tilted, and it's tilted in the favour of the person that has the power. And that is a form of bullying. So what I don't understand is why those sort of issues don't go to human resources rather than standards. Now, people would argue, well, that's because members aren't employees, and employees are the ones that are bound by human resources law and employment law and everything else. But we receive an allowance. I know it's not pay, it's different, it's salary. The public sometimes misunderstand that, but we get an allowance for the time we're giving up and the responsibilities we have. But we are still, therefore, paid. And it is not beyond the realm of man to say that when an issue where it is a complaint by a member of staff or a worry by a member of staff, that they should have the ability to go via human resources and use the law and the regulations that apply to employees and hateful behaviour and bullying behaviour in the workplace and everything else, and that should be applied to a member just as much as it would if it was a colleague. It is blatantly unfair the way that the playing field is working against our hard-working officers within this council right now, and that's something that needs to be addressed somehow.
Well, simply to say, were that it were so, the only form of intervention that the council can make in relation to its members is as a result of a resolution of the Standards Committee. It cannot go through human resources, it cannot dock the pay of a member, it cannot restrict their allowances because of a complaint that's been made against them, other than if there has been a determination by the Standards Committee. So that is why they have to come here. Quite often members of staff make a grievance as well, and you know, the council can be put in an envisaged position where the human resources process ends up upholding the grievance, but we haven't had a determination that the person involved in the grievance has had any disciplinary sanction imposed on them by the Standards Committee. That's clearly unsatisfactory, isn't it? And that's one of the things which I'm trying to avoid and to rectify. I think I had Janay first.
Councillor Genot.
Thank you very much, Chair, and through yourself to ask a question of the monitoring officer. I mean, to really make a statement on what we've heard tonight. I think the reason why there's been such a backlog of standards complaints is that we've had 7 monitoring officers in the last 18 months. And each time a monitoring officer comes in, they are bullied and harassed into not dealing with the previous administration's the complaints against them. So that's quite factual, and we know the reason why a number of monitoring officers left. Secondly, I'd also like to highlight and ask the monitoring officer through the chair for him to confirm some fake news, some statistics that have been coming out on Facebook. Allegedly, there's 55 standards complaints against me, and 90% of the standards complaints are against Councillor Sam Genat. And I welcome the monitoring officer today to confirm that these statistics are incorrect and not in line with the current standards complaints that we have at the moment. Thank you.
Chair, if it's convenient, I'll try and answer the questions. The first one was a matter of conjecture by the member. I'm not going to confirm or deny any of what he said. In relation to the number of complaints against individual members, members have an anonymised list. I don't recognise the numbers and the figures that he has provided, but I'm not going to go into a detailed analysis because that's the reason why it's anonymised.
Councillor Joseph.
I was going to ask, what would happen if an officer was raising a formal injunction against a member, and I wanted to know if the monitoring officer is aware of any cases that has been prepared during his tenure?
I can talk about examples in other councils. So there was many years ago a case of a chief executive, I think she was the managing director in fact, of a borough council, I think it was Cheltenham Borough Council, who sought to have the leader of that council barred from the council offices through an injunction. It didn't end well, and in fact it ended up with several trips to the Court of Appeal by one side or the other. So, you know, I think that civil remedies at law are the very last resort that you would contemplate, because at the end of the day, councils have a democratic mandate, they have a right to be heard. Officers have a right to work in a safe environment and not be subjected to bullying and harassment. And somehow we have to hold the balance between those two things.
So has this happened in Basildon, and is it as bad as you say it is? Like, sorry, what's the question again? I said, has it happened in Basildon, and is it as bad as you say it is?
Well, there have been no proceedings issued against any member in Basildon. The standard of conduct here, I mean, I deal with a lot of high-profile, dysfunctional councils, and you've heard and no doubt seen on social media a small range of those highlighted. But
sorry, I'd also like to know how would it be treated? Sorry, I forgot to add that part. How would it be treated?
How would what treated?
Regarding, hold on.
An injunction.
Yes, basically.
I'm listening.
But I don't understand the question.
If an injunction was brought forward by a member of staff,
how would it be treated? And have you experienced that in Basildon?
There have been no proceedings brought either by Basildon Council or against Basildon Council for an injunction against any member or any member of staff, as far as I'm aware. And I would be aware, I guess. In relation to how those treated elsewhere, I mean, they're very difficult and, you know, frankly, terminal steps in the relationship between one and the other. It just, you know, we've got to find ways of cohabiting which respect the rights and responsibilities of each, haven't we?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On reflection and hearing a bit more said by members here tonight, I would like to table that as an amendment, that we write to the LGA. I appreciate what the monitoring officer said they declined, but we pay them, right? Whoever pays the piper calls the tune. They take enough of Basildon Council Local Government Association, Quangos are us, I'd abolish them, but I ain't getting anywhere near 10 Downing Street yet, which is a shame for the country, but that's a different point. And I propose that this committee writes to the LGA to ask them to do a peer review, because this is on the verge of dysfunctionality. We are serving a number of vulnerable residents. We are providing key services. I don't think the previous or the present administration is dysfunctional. It's these levels of complaints for public confidence. We need that LGA peer review. So my amendment to this is that this committee, with respect to yourself, Mr. Chairman, writes this letter to ask the LGA to come to Basildon to do a peer review of the way we're handling complaints and everything else to do with that, just to get through this. It's not a criticism of any officer, but they've got a cheek to decline. We pay them, and they should come down at our request.
So a question to Councillor Smith. I'm all in favour of you bringing an amendment, of course. Can we just be clear on what the terms of the amendment are? So I've got that the chair of the committee writes to the LGA to invite them to undertake a peer review. It's of what? Is it of the handling of complaints, or is it of member conduct more generally?
Let's do the whole shebang. Let's do the whole shebang.
Corporate peer review inspection. I mean,
It is, if they're coming down, let's do the whole shebang.
I don't think it's within the terms of reference to the committee. If I may
what is
gently
relevant
say.
to this committee, obviously,
So
the way
member conduct and standards.
member conduct, how we're dealing with complaints, the whole shebang, right? Because we've done previous LGA peer reviews, haven't we, Councillor Baggett? And they've been very useful. And I think they've got a cheek to decline. We pay them a lot of good taxpayers' money.
In fairness to the LGA, I don't think they had a specific request to deal with member conduct. It was there was a recommendation for a corporate, what do you call it, a peer review, a corporate inspection. What used to be done by the Audit Commission and now gets done by the LGA. That is what they declined on the basis that we were subject to LGR and going to be abolished within 2 years. If it's a more specific and targeted review, I think we may have a different response. I don't know, but I don't want to press you to reduce it to writing. I don't know I can say the whole shebang in the resolution. So can we just be clear what you want it to do?
Did you want to speak? No, if you want to speak. We'll get in trouble talking about this. At the chairman's discretion.
Well, I need to know if there's a resolution to be moved, and if you could just be a bit more precise, that would be really helpful, Councillor Smith.
From what I'm hearing from other members here, definitely member conduct, because a local authority at Essex, I got an email from Paul Turner, your opposite, saying it's been a very busy year for standards. We've had 3 complaints.
Exactly.
Out of 77, or is it now 78 members?
There was definitely more than that. There was 50.
So we definitely need to get this down to single digits, and I think that LGA peer review, I hope that's answered your question.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'm sorry to hold your feet so far on that. I've got that the new resolution is that the chair of the committee writes to the LGA to invite them to undertake a peer review of member conduct at Basildon Council.
And the resolution of complaints.
And the resolution of a code of conduct complaints, yeah?
Yeah. So we get an outside pair of eyes that isn't affiliated to any political party, comes down. This is to say, it's not a criticism of any officer, any member, but we are becoming a banana republic, and we need to resolve that.
So do you want to deal with that resolution first and see if that's agreed and take a vote on it if it's not? And then we can call. I don't know if Councillor Baggett wants to talk on the amendment.
I do want to speak on
the amendment then.
Councillor Baggett.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, it's been going so swimmingly well this evening, and I apologise, Kerry, but I won't be supporting it. But I think at least you deserve to know why I won't be supporting it. Sadly, I think that the toxicity of behaviour in this council is beyond repair. And I don't think the LGA coming in and then doing an analysis, taking up officer time, taking up resources and everything else, and then saying to us, the problem you've got is the people are broken. because that's what the end result is going to be. Any member that's been here less than, well, you don't even have been here more than 3 months to see the toxicity of the behaviour across the board in some cases, and it's behavioural, and that isn't going to change. The LGA aren't going to wave a magic wand and say, here's the way we're going to solve it, because if they could do it, so could we. So I just think that what we will be doing is potentially is tying up officer resources, tying up time, which will be better off used in actually getting this council into a fit shape for our residents and actually achieving things on the ground, and not navel gazing on something which is only going to tell us what we already know, that it's toxic. It needs to be a fundamental change of behaviour.
Councillor Joseph.
I'm definitely going to be seconding his motion, but I did have a question. I wanted to know if did the chief executive of this council approach the monitoring officer with the draft injunction against a member that he was preparing to send to court? Yes or no?
I'm not prepared to answer questions of a specific nature. I'm sorry. I'm not prepared to answer that question.
Tell Gavin you'll get that.
You should vote on that.
Right, all those in favour?
2.
2.
Yep.
Against?
3.
3.
So the proposal is lost,
Yep.
and you move to the recommendation on the report, which is to note the contents of the report. Is to note the contents of this report.
All right. Right, so that's the resolution's lost, and now we go to the recommendation that the Standards and Privileges Committee note the contents of the report.
That concludes the business for today.
Right, yep, so that winds it all up for tonight.